I'm Jill from Exeter Sling Library, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about newborn safety in your sling or carrier. Now, you'll notice I'm not wearing a sling or carrier. That's because I feel that these are things that apply whatever kind of sling or carrier you're using. So it could be a stretchy wrap or a woven wrap, or something really exciting and amazing that somebody sent you from a foreign country, or it could be a baby bjorn or something you bought in Boots, or it could be a carrier you've borrowed from the library like a Tula or an Ergo. So there's loads of different slings and carriers out there, and these things apply to all of them. So our biggest safety concerns when you're using a sling or a carrier, I would say, are breathing and falling. There are other things as well, but breathing and falling are kind of the ones that I'm going to talk most about. So you want to make sure your baby is breathing in the sling. And the ways we're going to do that, make sure they've got a nice clear airway. So you need to be able to see that your baby can breathe. So you need to be able to see that there's no fabric covering their face. You need to be able to see that they're not smooshed into, clothing. This time of year, we're wearing a lot less. It's probably less of a concern. We also want to make sure that they're quite high up. They're not kind of smooshing down, and, especially if you're a woman, not smooshing into breast tissue. We want them to be nice and high up on this flat part of your chest. If you're a man, you have a different landscape. You may find you can get away with a lower carrying position. If that is comfortable and you can see that your baby has got a nice clear airway and that they're not smooshing into your chest or your clothing, you can get away with a lower carrying position. And if that's more comfortable to you, as long as you are monitoring your baby and they're safe, you carry on. If you do have breast tissue, you're probably going to want them to be higher so that they're clear of that nice flat part of your chest here. This time of year, less of a concern with clothing, but in winter, think about what you're wearing. Big thick scarves, things like that might reduce your baby's ability to breathe if they're smooshing into them. So you'll want to look at how you can make sure they're safe. The other thing we want to think about in terms of breathing is their head position. If your baby's chin falls down onto their chest like this, even if you do it yourself as an adult, it's harder to breathe. It's kind of hard work. And for a baby, that can actually compress their airway a little bit, and it can make it really hard work for them to breathe. So we want to avoid that. It's the reason that it's not recommended to leave your baby in car seats for long periods of time, because it's so easy in those bucket seats for their chin to go down on their chest and for them not to breathe so well. So you want to make sure your baby's got a good head position where their chin is not on their chest. I am going to do another video specifically about head support and head position later, so if you want to know more about that, please watch that video too. But yeah, so chin off chest, nice clear airway. The other thing I want to talk to you about is falling. We do not want to fall over with our baby in the sling, and we do not want our baby to fall out of the sling. So the things that we're going to do to make sure our baby is safe is to make sure that our carrier is nice and tight and supportive, and that our baby is safely in it, and that we don't have any trip hazards. Now again, this is going to vary massively depending on what carrier you're using, but you want to make sure that your baby is in that nice snug position. If they're nice and high like this and they're held to you closely, it's going to be easier on your back. If everything is loose, they're more likely to slip down and slump. Their chin's more likely to go on their chest. They're more likely to smoosh into breast tissue if you've got breast tissue. So there's lots of reasons why tight also relates to breathing. But equally, if everything is a bit loose, much more risk of your baby falling, and we definitely don't want that to happen. So make sure your carrier is nice and tight. That said, it's possible to be too tight. Now, I've not ever heard of a baby, being squished so tight that they were injured. Babies are very good at telling us if they're uncomfortable. But what I have experienced is sometimes people overcompensating, really concerned that it's not going to be tight enough, and they do their carrier so tight that they're walking around with this going, my baby's asleep, and I'm not very comfortable. So we want you to be comfortable. We're looking for a happy medium where your baby is supported, close to you. It's not hurting your back. But equally, we want you to be able to breathe. We want you to be able to relax your shoulders. So we're looking for that happy medium. And it may be a little bit of trial and error, especially if you're using a wrap, to find that sweet spot. Depending on what carrier you're using, you might have long bits of fabric left. If you're using a stretchy wrap, especially if you're someone who's quite petite, you might find that you've got extra length. Even some of the buckle carriers have got long straps. So look at ways of just tidying up at the end so that, you know, you don't have any trip hazards, you're not going to catch it on anything. What you can do, you can loop it round an extra time, you can tie a bow in the end of it, you can tuck it into your pockets. With buckle carriers, quite often you can roll the straps up and they have little bits of elastic to secure them. So there are things you can do to make sure you don't have excess bits of fabric floating around. So those are all things, you know, to think about in terms of safety. But as I say, your priorities essentially breathing and falling. We don't want either of those things. Well, we do want the breathing and we don't want the falling. This time of year, I'm making this video in summer. We also want to think a little bit about the heat. If a baby gets too hot or they get dehydrated, they don't breathe so well. So again, it's kind of related to our breathing. So just have a think of that. Dress your baby in very light layers of clothing so that they aren't at risk of overheating. If necessary, take them out of the sling if it's too hot, or you can look at using things like a UV umbrella to protect you both from the sun, a fan, handheld fan, you know, damp cloth, possibly a muslin or something between you if you're getting very sweaty. Again, just being aware of that airway. And, you know, not going out in the hottest part of the day, you know, on a really hot day. In winter, actually, overheating can also be a concern because people are worried that their baby will get cold. Sometimes they'll bundle them up. Don't. Put them in light layers again. Add an extra layer on the outside of your sling or carrier. You can tuck a blanket round, whether it's a carrier with straps or whether it's a stretchy wrap. It's really easy to add a layer. And then, you know, if you go into a nice warm shop or pub or wherever, you can take that layer off and your baby can be nice and snug and you don't need to worry about them overheating. I think that's kind of everything I want to talk about. Do check out my sort of subsequent video where I'll be talking specifically about head position, head control, wobble heads, slumping. And I'll see you again soon. Bye.